It's impossible to thank everyone that is responsible for this achievement which is about to begin. And earlier, the major contributors to it have already been mentioned anyway, so I'm not going to mention any names other than Reese Schonfields, and what a tremendous job he and his people have done, and what tremendous support we've had from our friends in the cable industry, from the advertising community, from the press of America in general, and from my family and everyone else. I want to say thank you. You'll notice out in front of me that we've raised 3 flags. One, the state of Georgia, where we're located. Second, the United States flag, of course, which represents our country and the way we intend to serve it with the cable news network. And over on the other side, we have the flag of the United Nations, because we hope that the cable news network, with its international coverage and greater depth coverage, will bring, both in the country and in the world, a better understanding of how people from different nations live and work together, and within the nation work together, so that we can perhaps, hopefully, bring together in brotherhood and kindness and friendship and in peace the people of this nation and this world. I'm now going to read a little poem that was written by Ed Kessler of dedication. To act upon one's convictions while others wait, to create a positive force in a world where cynics abound, to provide information to people when it wasn't available before, to offer those who want it a choice, for the American people whose thirst for understanding and a better life has made this venture possible, for the cable industry whose pioneering spirit caused this great step forward in communications, and for those employees of Turner Broadcasting whose total commitment to their company has brought us together today, I dedicate the news channel for America, the cable news network. And now if we could have the presentation of colors, then we'll have the national anthem. Thank you very much. Everyone will stand for the presentation of the colors, please.
Angeles, Niagara Falls, Paris, Tulsa, Denver, London, Canton, Newark, Peking, Moline, San Diego, Reno, Nicaragua, San Francisco, Seoul, Perth, the Marianne, the United Nations, Vienna, Buffalo, Lima, Kiribati, Islamabad, Decatur, Nashville, Jamaica, Jonestown, Chicago, Weatherford, Topeka, Tokyo, Madison, Fort Worth, Fort Wayne, Warsaw, Bangor.
Ready, camera 1, box. Take 11, Mike Q. To New York. Stand by, ready 3, take 3, Mike Q. 3, start to slow zoom in a little bit. Roll tape, take 3. Ready 13, full. Ready, camera 3, 1 center up.
Good evening, I'm David Walker.
And I'm Lois Hart. Now here's the news. President Carter has arrived in Fort Wayne, Indiana for a brief visit with civil rights leader Vernon Jordan. Jordan is in serious but stable condition now at Parkview Hospital. He is recuperating from the gunshot wound suffered early Thursday morning. Police still have no solid lead on who attempted to murder Jordan. We'll have more on the president's visit later on in the hour. But first, Richard Bloom takes a look at how the small town in Indiana is handling the shooting of a prominent black leader.
Since the civil rights leader was shot early Thursday morning, government officials in Fort Wayne and leaders of the black community have worked hard to project the image of a city united in its concern for Vernon Jordan's recovery and in its determination to catch whoever committed the crime. So far, the approach has worked. Despite the potential for racial violence, Fort Wayne has been quiet. At a vigil for Jordan, the mayor voiced a theme of restraint and prayer.
And if I've learned one thing today, it is that with all of the help that we've received, when you get down to tonight, to this moment, here in this church, when we think of Vernon Jordan, and we think of the city of Fort Wayne, the thing that's left is prayer.
We shall all be free someday. Oh, give him my arms. I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Over the last 4 days, officials here have worked hard to inform the city and the rest of the country of Jordan's medical progress and the status of the police investigation. They want to dispel rumors which could inflame the community. Black leaders formed an ad hoc committee to provide information and show their support.
Monday, there will be formal announcement concerning the Vernon Jordan Reward Fund. At that time, we will establish a fund whereas citizens in the Fort Wayne area and across the nation may be able to send the money to our fund to offer a reward for the apprehension and capture and conviction of that person or persons that may have perpetrated this crime.
Despite the support of black leaders and countless hours of police work, local, state, and federal law officers have made little progress in finding out who shot Vernon Jordan and why. Police are watching their step in the face of national attention.
I'm requesting all police personnel within the next 48 hours to be courteous, cooperative, and diplomatic. Any action of any officer in any manner will definitely make the national headlines. We're professionals. We want to project a professional image, both as police officers and on the city in general. Signed, Leon Wolf, Chief of Police.
One civil rights leader here said the sniper shooting of Vernon Jordan put Fort Wayne under a national microscope. So far, despite the potential for violence, there has been none. And it appears that this community has held together despite all the national attention. Richard Blome, Cable News Network, in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
The FBI and Fort Wayne police are at odds over the Vernon Jordan investigation. Published reports from Fort Wayne say the FBI thinks a single shot was fired at Jordan. When we checked with Fort Wayne police this morning, they told us that is not the case. The FBI bases the single bullet theory on the idea that a chain-link fence deflected the shot, saving Jordan's life, and also leading doctors to believe that more than one shot had been fired. Fort Wayne police say that cannot be true. They say fragments taken from Jordan and his car make that all impossible. Until proven wrong, the police are saying they are sticking to a two-bullet theory. In New London, Connecticut, police say a man apparently upset over a family problem, went on a shooting spree aboard an Amtrak train en route from Washington to Boston. A passenger and an Amtrak policeman were wounded critically. The conductor was also shot. He's reported in stable condition. 29-year-old Frank Banks has been arrested and charged with attempted murder. Banks is unemployed. Police say he has had family problems. Lois?
New York Yankees slugger Reggie Jackson has a close call. A man fired a gunshot at the baseball player over an argument over a parking space. Jackson was not injured. The man now is under arrest. Our New York Bureau has more on this and other stories.
The Yankees' home run king had a hard night on the baseball diamond last night, but it was nothing compared to what he encountered on a dark New York street a few hours after the game. Reggie Jackson had gone out partying to some of his favorite bars, and for good reason. It was his 11th inning home run that clinched the victory for the Yankees last night over the Toronto Blue Jays. Jackson, who frequents the singles bars in this posh Manhattan neighborhood, was looking for a parking place when a car blocked his way. He asked the driver to move, and he did. Then witnesses say a passenger in the car started yelling four-letter words and racial slurs at Jackson and threw at least one broken bottle at Jackson's car. Two men on the street, recognizing the Yankees star slugger, joked with him about going after the guy. Then the joke ended. The man, identified as 25-year-old Angel Vieira, is accused of pulling a .38 caliber revolver and opening fire. 3 shots zinged past Jackson. Each missed its mark. Vieira has been charged with attempted murder and illegal possession of a deadly weapon. After the incident, Jackson was hustled by police to a nearby restaurant, questioned. He says he'll cooperate with the investigation, but hopes it's...
We're apparently having a little problem in New York. We'll go on with the news now. Tomorrow would have been the last day in the life of mass murderer John Gacy, but instead the man convicted of more murders than any other person in American history will spend his execution date inside prison in southern Illinois while his case is appealed. Gacy was sentenced to death for murdering 33 boys and young men, but he could be in prison for years while all the appeals are exhausted. Gacy's attorneys have filed for more than $48,000 in defense expenses.
Meanwhile, Mount St. Helens has its first quiet Sunday in several weeks now. Smoke continues to pour out of the mountain's top, but little or no ash is coming out with the steam. The volcano has been quiet for the last several days, and federal officials say they hope that the worst is finally over. It was 2 Sundays ago when the mountain blew its top, killing at least 33 people and causing more than $1 billion in damage. Last Sunday, another massive cloud of ash blew out of that mountain, but this Sunday, the volcano has been calm. At least one person says he is sure the mountain has gone through its worst activity, at least so far. 75-year-old Ray Jennings, who was in his cabin just 8 miles from the mountaintop when it had exploded, says he knows the mountain will remain quiet. Although Jennings thinks it's safe to stay in his home, relatives aren't quite so sure, and they aren't quite convincing him that the mountain will stay quiet. After days of trying, they finally convinced Jennings yesterday, however, to finally leave his mountain home.
The lives of airline passengers and crews may be unnecessarily endangered by inaccurate fuel gauging systems and lax training procedures. There is evidence the problem already has taken some lives and threatened many others. Despite the evidence, the Federal Aviation Administration claims the matter is not serious. CNN's Washington correspondent Joe Pennington has the results of a major investigative report.
Involved are fuel gauging systems found on almost every commercial airliner flown in this country. The accuracy of those gauging systems has been called seriously into question by a disturbing trend in airline incidents, and in one case, an airline crash. Pan Am's Flight 2 last October was a giant Boeing 747. It was destined for New York's Kennedy Airport from Houston. But because of poor weather in New York, the plane was diverted to Newark. Just seconds after the jumbo jet touched Newark's runway, 2 of its engines ran out of fuel and quit. A 3rd engine quit before the plane reached the terminal. The 747 and its 241 occupants were towed to the gate. The Federal Aviation Administration investigated and concluded that an inaccurate fuel chart on board Flight 2 was primarily responsible for the incident. But the FAA admits that inaccurate fuel gauges contributed to the potentially tragic situation.
We have determined that there was a slight gauge error of approximately 2,200 pounds. You burn about 18 to 20,000 pounds an hour at cruising altitude in the local area. So you would figure that's maybe 10 minutes worth, something like that. The Boeing company issued on February 15th an operations manual change outlining fuel requirements and some of the problems with fuel gauge errors and things of this nature.
The FAA itself has taken no action which requires any mechanical changes with respect to the fuel gauging systems.
I'm not aware of any required change.
Pan Am would not comment on the incident involving Flight 2, but the fuel gauging problem does not appear limited to either Pan Am or to the Boeing 747. Within weeks of our investigation into the issue, the nation's largest pilots' union issued this notice. It cautioned pilots to anticipate major errors and inaccuracies in fuel gauge indications on DC-8, DC-9, DC-10, 707, 727, 737, 747, and L-1011 aircraft. United Airlines Flight 173, just over 18 months ago, was a McDonnell Douglas DC-8 flying from Denver to Portland.
United 173 Heavy, Mayday, Mayday. The engines are pulling out. We're going down. We're not going to be able to make the airport.
10 people died here. Another 23 were seriously injured. Flight 173 ran out of fuel before it could reach Portland's runway. It had burned precious fuel in a holding pattern because of landing gear difficulties. But Captain Buddy McBroom was still sure he had plenty of fuel to make the runway.
I lost fire on the last engine, and I had to maneuver the airplane some to get lined up with this patch of trees. I can remember seeing the huge, the tops of these huge evergreens going by the cockpit windows, and that's the last I remember.
The National Transportation Safety Board investigated. It concluded that Captain McBroom was responsible for the crash. In the board's words, the probable cause of the accident was the failure of the captain to monitor properly the aircraft's fuel state and to properly respond to the low-level fuel state.
Didn't the fuel gauges tell you that your fuel was going to hell?
No. The fuel gauges indicated that we had more than adequate fuel on board to complete the procedure in the cabin and descend to and land at the airport.
At least some NTSB staff members privately agree with Captain McBroom. A review of Flight 173's cockpit voice recorder, they say, shows McBroom and his crew were worried enough about fuel to have discussed it at least 10 times in the 29 minutes before their crash. But in its final report, the NTSB implied that McBroom failed to take into account the tolerances of his fuel gauges when he calculated the amount of fuel he would need to reach Portland's runway.
United Airlines taught me many things, and I've learned a lot of other things on my own. But United Airlines never taught me, nor any other airplane crew, that there are allowable tolerances in the fuel quantity indicating system on any of its airplanes.
3 months after the crash of Flight 173, United Airlines issued this addition to its DC-8 flight manual. Many United Airlines pilots tell cable news it was the first time they'd ever heard of fuel gauge tolerance. And some United pilots say they'd complained to United safety officials about DC-8 fuel gauge problems months before the Portland crash. United Airlines won't comment. Fuel gauging errors are not limited to the United Airlines crash we've been discussing or to the Pan Am emergency at Newark. Cable News has learned of 4 other recent incidents involving airline planes which ran out of fuel just seconds after landing. Only weeks after Captain McBroom's crash, another United Airlines jet put down in Portland with a defective fuel gauge. These are notes on fuel gauging difficulties in Honolulu and Iceland. And this is a Braniff Airways Boeing 747 with fuel gauge irregularities en route to Hong Kong. Federal aviation sources tell Cable News that we've just scratched the surface, that there are many more fuel problems we don't even know about.
All your operational decisions, I'm not talking about an emergency situation. All your operational decisions, which take place on every segment of every trip almost daily, nightly, are based on the assumption that your gauges are accurate.
The heavier a plane is, the more costly it is to fly. Eastern Airlines has actually stripped paint from its planes to reduce weight in the face of ever-rising fuel costs. All major airlines now cut airplane fuel reserves to what they consider a safe minimum. But these reduced fuel reserves make accurate fuel gauging all the more important. Hundreds of lives have been seriously endangered by inaccurate fuel gauging systems. Millions more may have been exposed to them. The people charged with protecting your safety on commercial airliners, the FAA, says it's not all that significant. That position becomes harder to defend as more fuel gauge discrepancies continue to occur. Joe Pennington, Cable News, Washington.
Candidates make a final run at the primaries this Tuesday. We'll look at that story and much more when the News Channel continues.
There are many medications for acid indigestion or heartburn relief. Which one is right for you? For years, Maalox has been recommended most by doctors. Now, the antacid ingredients in here, plus an extra ingredient, are in Maalox Plus tablets. Really pleasant tasting and effective. And Maalox Plus tablets also come in this handy pocket pack that keeps them fresh and sanitary. Maalox Plus for acid indigestion or heartburn relief. But don't just take my word for it. Try Maalox Plus tablets. You'll find you can't do better.
Clinton, Colorado. The sun hammers your eyes to a tight squint and cracks your throat with a dry, parched-out thirst. But one thing washes it clean. Nestea.
All over. Nestea tastes good all over. All over. Nestea tastes...
And with Shirley.
Fort Wayne, Indiana, and is now meeting with reporters. We now switch live to Fort Wayne, Indiana.
But today, again, I've been given a very accurate report from his own physicians that he's recovering well. His strength and his good health, his athletic attitude and ability have stood him in good stead, along with the prayers of tens of thousands of people who believe in Vernon and who admire him very much and who've been concerned about him, and also, of course, the excellent care that he's gotten here in this superb hospital facility. I've also had a chance to meet with the mayor, with the police officials from the local government, and with the director of the FBI regional headquarters here in Fort Bend. And I think it's very good to point out that we have excellent cooperation and that they are getting along well with each other. The local officials are very grateful that the FBI is involved in the investigation of the case, and I'm not going to comment on the progress of the investigation except to point out to you that there is nothing in their relationship except one of mutual appreciation and the very closest possible cooperation. The mayor of Fort Wayne and others have done a superb job in making all the local officials available in this heavy burden on the community. And the attitude of the people along the highway as I came in from the airport was one of friendship and encouragement, which shows the deep concern of the people about this unfortunate incident and the hope that Vernon Jordan will do well and recover completely, which is a high prospect now, and that the perpetrators of this crime will be brought to justice. It's obvious that what Vernon Jordan stands for, his courage, his commitment to the plight of the poor and deprived people of all races, has been appreciated by this nation. And as president, I want to add my personal appreciation for what he has meant for our country and what he will continue to mean in the years ahead. Mr. Mayor, would you like to add any word? Okay. Yeah. We talked about the necessity for him to carry out the doctor's orders and directions. He gave me a report that he's getting along well, that he has received indirectly an outpouring of expressions of support and friendship and prayers from throughout the country. He has now been permitted to watch television. He can't have visitors outside of just myself and a few others in his family. He's not yet begun to read newspapers and so forth, but he will understand tomorrow. And he, of course, doesn't have a telephone in his room. But he's interested in the continued progress of the Urban League. While he is incapacitated, has complete confidence that it will be done. He primarily expressed his thanks to me for the outpouring of support and help for him and his family that has been exhibited here in Fort Wayne and throughout the state of Indiana and indeed the country.
Mr. President, did you convince that it was conspiracy?
I don't have any information that I want to divulge concerning the criminal investigation. I think that's best described by the legal officials.
Well, Mr. President, you called it the other day an attempted assassination.
Yes.
What does that word mean to you? Does it mean political? Does it rule out personal motives? What did you mean by that?
Well, after I got home, I looked it up in the dictionary because some question had been raised by the press. It said the attempted murder of a prominent person. And this is all I meant. I was not trying to define the nature of the crime, except that a prominent person was the subject of an attack.
You weren't referring to motive at all.
I have no way to know what the motive is.
Mr. President, you just said that you hope that the perpetrators are brought to justice. You used the word plural. Does that reflect a belief by the Justice Department that there's still a feeling that there may be more than one person involved?
No, I was not trying to determine how many there might be.
Mr. President, Vernon Jordan has always traveled alone, without security, so that's the American way. He ought to be able to do that. Did you give him any advice to the contrary, or do you feel he's wrong, and also is there any national coordinated efforts to protect civil rights leaders right now?
No, there is no national coordinated effort to protect prominent people who are active in the civil rights movement. This, I don't believe, is necessary now. Those people who are prominent and also courageous in dealing with controversial issues are always a possible subject of attack, but this is something I've not discussed with Vernon as far as providing help or protection for other civil rights leaders. I don't think it is necessary at this time.
Mr. President, did you have anything to do about the circumstances of the shooting? What happened? Did he discuss the shooting in his
Just very briefly. Well, I think the only comment that he made was that with people who are involved in public life like he has been, that the possibility of an attack is something that one has to understand and accept. That the alternative is a withdrawal of one's service, that it was a danger that he was willing to accommodate in his own life, and that he was very thankful that the attack was not successful.
Mr. President, do you think that this is in any way related to the events in Miami?
I don't have any reason to think that there is a relationship.
Mr. President, just 8 hours before the shooting, Mr. Vernon gave local reporters here the impression that he was sort of challenging leaders in this country to try to address problems, mainly domestic problems. Was there any mention of any assurances that you might try to give him there be another 4 years of your administration?
No, we didn't discuss that, but I observed very carefully Vernon's statements. I've known him for a long time. When he was in charge of voter registration in the southeastern region of our country, he was living in Atlanta. I was a state senator then. Vernon was planning to run for Congress from the 5th District in Georgia. I was planning to run for governor. We both wound up with different positions later on. And Vernon has sometimes been a very severe critic of policies of the federal government, actions of the Congress, actions by me, or failure to move rapidly enough to alleviate the concerns of the poor people about whom he's concerned. But at the same time, we've always maintained our friendship. And I'm familiar with Vernon's speeches, a major thrust of them. I listen to them very carefully. When I've made decisions in my own administration as president concerning
There you see the president just speaking moments ago, live from Fort Wayne, Indiana, meeting with reporters after meeting with Mr. Vernon Jordan in this hospital, still recovering from bullet wounds suffered in an attack earlier this week. The president, we had to interrupt that so that we can take a feed live from the Mideast momentarily. 2 days from today, the nation's presidential primary season comes to an end on June the 3rd. 9 states will be holding their primaries. Super Tuesday, as it's called, could make or break the hopes of President Carter and Senator Ted Kennedy. 21% of the Democratic delegates will be chosen on that day, Super Tuesday. The 3 most important primaries in terms of delegates are California, Ohio, and New Jersey. New Mexico, Rhode Island, South Dakota, West Virginia, and Montana are also voting that day. Together, there are 696 delegates at stake, 580 from California, Ohio, and New Jersey alone. President Carter is 105 votes short of the number he needs for the nomination. That number is 1,666. The Republican primaries, of course, will be anticlimactic for Ronald Reagan. His last remaining foe, George Bush, pulled out of the race.
For Cable News Network's inaugural broadcast, President Carter was earlier interviewed by CNN's senior Washington correspondent Daniel Shore and our managing editor George Watson. During the interview taped yesterday, Shore asked the president why he is refusing to debate John Anderson.
What is the Anderson threat? Is it the fear that he may rob both you and Reagan of the margin of victory and throw this election into the House?
I mean, I don't look on it as a particular threat, although it's obvious to me that whatever strength politically Anderson might have in November, it will come at my expense more and will help Reagan. But the essence of it is I just don't feel inclined to debate 2 Republicans, and they're both Republicans.
Mr. President, South Korea, a military dictatorship, 40,000 American troops there. Does our national security interests give us any alternative to supporting yet another unpopular and repressive military regime there?
We have 2 considerations in South Korea that have always affected our policy. They've not changed. One is the security of South Korea from external aggression, primarily from the North Koreans, and secondly, the enhancement of the democratic processes, the protection of human rights, and the move toward a democracy in South Korea. The security commitment has not been shaken. We and the South Koreans and others monitor very closely any potential threat from North Korea. And there is no doubt in my mind that our forces and the South Korean forces are adequately strong to repel any potential invasion or threat to Korean security.
The News Channel will present the entire hour-long interview with the president beginning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time tonight.
And for more comments made by the president today, here's Bernard Shaw in our Washington studio.
Also in that cable news interview, President Carter says the housing and automobile industries, in fact the entire national economy, will be stimulated by a reduction in the inflation rate. The president said beginning this summer, inflation will start falling, much the way interest rates have been coming down recently. And very pointedly, the president told cable news interviewers George Watson and Daniel Shore, "I don't think that we're going to have the deepest and most severe recession since World War II." In another network interview today, President Carter told CBS's Face the Nation that he has no plans to reduce the level of American troops in Europe as a money-saving measure. Defense Secretary Harold Brown is in Europe this weekend, conferring with NATO allies. In London tomorrow, he'll meet with British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and top British defense officials before going to Norway for a conference with the NATO Nuclear Planning Group. The Pentagon says 1,800 Marines sent to the Indian Ocean after the Iranian and Afghanistanian crises have been withdrawn. A spokesman says the Marines may be sent back if needed. Notwithstanding that, the Pentagon says sometime this month, 7 cargo ships will sail into the area carrying heavy equipment for a Marine brigade. Meanwhile, officials say the United States is negotiating with Egypt to station F-15 fighter planes there, and reportedly, the Pentagon is reasonably close to securing airfields and ports in 2 other countries, Kenya and Oman. And that's the latest from our Cable News Bureau in Washington.
In New York today, a march to show support for the state of Israel. Thousands of people waving Israeli flags marched down Fifth Avenue in the 25th annual Salute to Israel. Marching bands, floats, and groups of children flowing down the street. The parade is sponsored by the American Zionist Youth Foundation and was first held in 1965 to express American support for the Israeli state. Thousands more lined the streets during the parade, cheering and shouting expressions of support. Members of the Israeli consulate in New York also participated in the parade.
In Israel today, Prime Minister Menachem Begin met with his cabinet to work out political problems now facing his government. CNN's Jay Bashinsky is in Jerusalem. We now go to him live for a report on the situation.
It's 12:35 a.m. here in Jerusalem, and we've been following the fast-moving Israeli political crisis throughout the day for this first live satellite transmission to the cable news network. Israel's cabinet assembled for a crucial session that would determine Prime Minister Begin's chances of staying in office. Prime Minister Begin's survival was undermined by the stormy resignation last week of Israelite faced as defense minister. Begin succeeded in keeping his fractious coalition together by taking over the defense post himself for the time being. The government apparently is preparing for the imminent resumption of negotiations with Egypt and the U.S. on Palestinian autonomy. To that end, it welcomed President Carter's remarks made in an exclusive interview with the cable news network that a Western European diplomatic intervention would complicate the negotiating process at this time.
Expression of appreciation to the President of the United States and to the Secretary of State for their position regarding the European initiative and the American unequivocal readiness to veto any such a proposal that might prejudice Resolution 242, which forms the basis of the Camp David Agreement.
The first hint that Begin was taking over the defense portfolio came when he announced that Israel would not withdraw from the rest of Sinai unless a multinational peacekeeping force was organized to police the buffer zone along the Egyptian-Israeli border, as stipulated in the Camp David Accords and peace treaty. The weekend threat upset the Egyptians, who asked for clarifications from Israel's ambassador Ben Elissar in Cairo. Begin's bombshell may actually have been meant to hit back at Weizmann by inferring that his arch-rival failed to press for quick establishment of the peacekeeping force. Even if Begin resolves the coalition conflict, he will still face pressure to step down. Weizmann will go on fighting him within their Likud party or by organizing a new party that might include some of Israel's most popular figures, such as ex-Foreign Minister Dayan. He, too, quit in disapproval over Begin's handling of the Palestinian autonomy talks. Begin's remaining ministers could easily bring down the government over the proposed cabinet reshuffle, but this might be tantamount to political suicide for many of them. As for the Prime Minister, he is determined to fill out his term through mid-1981, but this will not be an easy task for the ailing Israeli leader. This is Jay Bushinsky for the Cable News Network in Jerusalem.
Obviously, the issue of settlements on Israel's West Bank continues to be a point of controversy. The settlements are opposed by the U.S. and Egypt and are described as a barrier to a full Mideast peace agreement. Despite that, many American families are planning a move to Israel to help build a new settlement in that troubled region. We have the story now from New York.
Bernard and Raquel Welt are an Orthodox Jewish couple married just over a year. Raquel expecting her first child this month. Her husband earns about $10,000 a year as a garment wholesaler in New York, enough to afford a comfortable garden apartment and 2 cars. But sometime soon the couple plans to sacrifice their middle-class comforts for a life of hard labor in the Mideast. They are among 230 American Zionist families who plan to build a pioneering settlement in the barren soil of Efrat, a West Bank settlement near Hebron, where Palestinian gunmen massacred several other Jewish settlers early in May. The U.S. government views new settlements in the disputed territory as illegal, but to Bernie and Raquel, it's the dream of a lifetime, even if the Carter administration disapproves.
I'm not happy with a lot of American policy, not just in terms of Israel. I'm not happy with President Carter either. I didn't vote for him and certainly will not vote for him in this election. And I don't like his policies in general, and I also do not like his policies regarding Israel. I don't feel that I have to listen to what he has to say. He doesn't approve of the settlements in Israel. I'm aware of that. It doesn't mean to me that I shouldn't go. It doesn't discourage me. His reasons are not completely valid to me.
What do you expect you will find there when you get there?
We expect to be pioneers in a sense. It's right now it's a barren piece of land. It's all rocks. We expect to build a city, and we invite people to come and join us.
Why do you want to go and live in a barren, rocky area that is not only a danger zone, but many Israelis say it's controversial?
At the moment, it's not occupied by anybody. It's occupied by a lot of rocks and some trees and shrubbery. If we had to evict a lot of families, Arab families that were living there now, they would be very upset and would be inciting them, and it would be much more volatile. But it isn't the situation. It isn't like Hebron, where people went in and took over buildings that had been in their family before, and when the family was massacred, but now was being occupied by Arabs. So I agree with Bernie. I don't see this as the kind of community that's going to have to be maintained by barbed wire and constant surveillance of guns.
Few, if any, of the Zionist couples moving to the West Bank say they intend to renounce their American citizenship. They will remain Jewish Americans. And if the Carter administration continues to take a dim view of the settlements, they say, so be it. Becoming pioneer settlers on the West Bank, they say, is the strongest statement they could make, that Israel belongs to the Jewish people. In Queens, New York, this is Barry Cunningham reporting for the Cable News Network.
We're going to have a live report from Key West on the Cuban refugees when the news channel continues.
Now, Time Life Books brings you the Good Cook series. It's a fabulous collection of recipes, plus all the step-by-step how-to-do-it skills to make them. In poultry, you'll learn boning and braising, how to cut for economy, and carve with confidence. Cut corners on time and trouble and cost, but never on quality. Always starting from scratch with the freshest natural ingredients, and finishing up beautifully. In soups, you'll study stocks and stews, and everything from slow simmering to deep freezing. Vegetables will teach you seasonal shopping, herbs and marinades, and quick steaming and stuffing, and stir-frying. When you complete the Good Cook series, you'll know rice and spice, poaching and pickling, what golden brown looks like, how to do every kind of cooking easier, faster, and better. And to show off your new skills, we've gathered thousands of recipes from the best cookbooks from Manhattan to Morocco. So you can make chicken Kiev like a Russian, authentic Wiener Schnitzel, and a cherry pie, George Lacan. Make more interesting salads, lighter cakes, and heartier breads, simple suppers, and fabulous feasts. We'll send you poultry for a free 10-day examination, along with this marvelous 48-page guide to kitchen tools and equipment, yours to keep if you decide to purchase poultry. If you and your family aren't thrilled with poultry, you can return these books within 10 days and owe nothing. If you keep poultry, you'll pay just $9.95 plus shipping and handling. Then, approximately every other month, you'll receive a new volume of the Good Cook series for the same 10-day free examination. There's no minimum number to buy, and you may cancel at any time. Each is only $9.95 plus shipping and handling, and they'll make you a good cook for life.
To order your subscription to the Good Cook series, call toll-free 1-800-257-1257. In New Jersey, call 800-232-6966. Each book for $9.95 will be sent on a 10-day approval every other month.
Here's what's happening at this moment. President Carter flew to Fort Wayne today to meet with the wounded civil rights leader, Vernon Jordan. Carter sought to portray the efforts of the Fort Wayne police and the FBI as a united effort to find the man who shot Jordan. Earlier today, there were reports saying the local police and the FBI have been disagreeing on how many shots were fired. The president said Jordan was in good spirits when he met with him. An Arab economist says Saudi Arabia plans to hike oil prices and cut back production to stabilize OPEC prices. After that, Saudi Arabia will try to get OPEC to freeze oil prices for the rest of the year. In Israel, Prime Minister Menachem Begin averts a political crisis by assuming the post of defense minister. He's looking for a suitable replacement for Ezer Weizmann. President Carter said in an interview with CNN that Ted Kennedy is a good Democrat. We'll have the complete interview later this evening. And thousands of people marched in the streets of New York to show support for Israel. We'll have that story and more as the news channel continues.
Nicaragua is a Latin American country in political turmoil these days. Anti-American sentiment is said to be widespread, and since the revolution to overthrow dictator Somoza nearly a year ago, hate for the United States has grown stronger. This week, Congress is scheduled to consider appropriating $75 million in aid to Nicaragua. The bill has been hotly debated because many congressmen don't want to help a Marxist country. Recently, CNN's Kathleen Sullivan flew to Nicaragua to find out what is happening there. This week, we'll have a series of reports about the country and its people and what the $75 million might mean to Nicaragua. Linda Lovelace, the star of the pornographic movie Deep Throat, is joining other feminists in calling for theater owners to stop showing that movie. Speaking in Manhattan yesterday, Lovelace said that she was beaten and forced to do the film by her ex-husband. She said her former movie career and reputation has caused her a lot of anguish. And the former child star of Lassie is under arrest in California on drug charges. Tommy Redding was booked for conspiracy to operate a laboratory for refining and purifying, I should say, cocaine. And now with the latest look at the weather, here's Dallas Raines at the weather desk. Dallas?
Thank you, Dave and Lois, and good afternoon, everyone. Yesterday, we had all the heavy rain in Nebraska, and it's moved now eastward in the Mississippi Valley. We're going to be watching that for you. We have the latest satellite photograph that's going to show you some heavy showers and thunderstorms that have now moved into the Ohio Valley. Also, more rain is expected to move into Nebraska later tonight as another wave of low pressure moving along that front. You can see that low pressure system now that is swirling through Wisconsin, causing the cloudiness, also the heavy thunderstorms which are now in that area. The low pressure system will move to the north into Canada, and the moisture, which is now coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, is causing the heavy rains, raining now in Detroit, and also some heavy rain expected to go on back into the eastern sections of Wisconsin later tonight and tomorrow. Low pressure is expected to come up through that area during the next 24 hours, and we'll be watching that for you. There you can see that front, which is now right here, just the western portions of Pennsylvania, runs into the Ohio Valley. Heavy showers and thunderstorms in that area. Detroit now, some rain and 59 degrees. I expect this low to move on to the northeast, and this area of cloudiness to continue toward the east, causing heavy rains later for portions of Pennsylvania. Now, if all that's not enough, it's also the first day of the 1980 hurricane season, and we're looking on a special GOES satellite photograph just into CNN. You can see the cloudiness which stretches across the Atlantic Ocean. There is a lot of thunderstorms down around Jamaica, some heavy thunderstorms there, but the pressure surfaces are high, and I do not expect this area to develop into the first hurricane of the season, which will be Allen. Allen will be the first storm. We move into the second year of male names for hurricanes, and so Allen will be the first one, but we do not expect that over the next couple of days. Let's look now at the forecast of several cities around the country. New York, the thunderstorms moving in there for tomorrow, the high of 86. St. Louis will have thunderstorms again tomorrow, the high of 87. Hot down in Dallas with sunny skies, a high of 94. And Honolulu will have sunny skies with a high of 85. That's a look at the weather. Now back over to the anchor desk.
Thank you, Dallas. Coming up on the news channel, looks like the good old days of gasoline wars are coming back, and an explosion rocks an oil company in London.
Do you know me? In places like this, I'm not always recognized. That's one reason I carry the American Express card. It really comes in handy on vacations, for hotels, car rentals, ski equipment, and tennis lessons. After all, man does not live by golf alone.
To apply for an American Express card, look for this display wherever the card is welcomed.
The American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
How many cold tablets do you take a day? 2?
More.
4?
More.
6?
Yes, 6.
A day? And then more at night? Why?
They're new.
Ever try Contact?
No.
Watch. One Contact helps relieve your congestion for up to 12 hours without the aspirin substitute and cough suppressant in these. Just one more Contact helps you all night while you sleep.
You're the guys on TV.
Give your cold to Contact.
This mixture kills over 25,000 people every year. If you drive a car, think about that.
Here's what's happening up to this moment. President Carter flew to Fort Wayne, Indiana today to meet with the wounded civil rights leader Vernon Jordan. Carter sought to portray the efforts of the Fort Wayne police and the FBI as a united one to find the man who shot Jordan. President Carter says Senator Kennedy's challenge to his re-election bid is good for the Democratic Party. The Pentagon withdraws 1,800 Marines it sent to the Arabian Sea. The troops were part of a military buildup following the Iran and Afghan crises. Saudi Arabia will try to get oil producers to freeze their prices for the rest of the year. Pickets are playing jazz outside the London headquarters of the BBC. The musicians are on strike against plans to disband 5 BBC orchestras. And coming up, details on a bomb explosion in London. That and more as the news continues.
Rough seas in the Florida Straits kept the Cuban refugees out of their boats today. CNN's Mike Vetcher is in Key West right now, and he says there's little activity in the port. For more on the story right now, let's go live to Key West.
The docks at the Truman Annex Naval Base are empty at this hour. In fact, the last boat to arrive here arrived at about 8 o'clock this morning. Coast Guard helicopters scanning the horizon and cutters scanning the sea have reported no signs of any boats in the Cuban flotilla. So it appears for now the flotilla has stopped. Now, the 8-foot seas may have stopped it, but some officials here believe it is Castro who has stopped the flotilla. One of those officials is Arturo Cobo, who heads the Cuban volunteer force here at the Key West Naval Air Station. Mr. Cobo, do you believe Castro has stopped the flotilla for this time?
Yes, positive, because he sent the boats here with bad weather, and plenty of people die already for this condition. So it's not the weather; it's Castro that is holding the boats.
Why would he want to hold them?
We don't know what he got in mind now. You know, Castro is playing a game in the beginning. He's gonna keep on playing games.
Do you think the boats are going to continue to trickle in, or do you think they'll come in one big group? We've heard reports that they will come in one big group.
Maybe that's our intelligence report is that he's going to send everybody at the same time. So, you know, we're talking about 200 boats all at the same time together. So it's one thing that he can do, but we don't know what is the real situation.
What happens then when he sends the 200 boats? There are no more boats in Mariel to bring back refugees who want to come here. What will you do then, the Cuban American community?
Well, we're going to be here until the last Cuban come from Cuba. You know, the worry that we have now is that plenty of people went to get their family. Plenty of people, we're talking about the 200,000 people that Castro got the list. He knows that these people want to leave the country now. So these people can go to jail for that matter. They lose their jobs, and now we don't have any way to go and get them, you know? So it's going to be a bad situation for our people, the Cubans that live in Cuba. And like I say, well, for example, go to Cuba, get the family, Castro put in the boat, whatever he wants to put, he's trying to make a deal, okay, come back again, I'm going to give you 200 people. Okay, but this is not my family. But he say, okay, make another trip and we give you the family. So they bring 200 people, they don't know where they come from. It's no family. This family of the refugee is still in Cuba. And now what are we going to do?
Also, since Wednesday, some of the refugees who have arrived here appear to be more tired, and since they have arrived a month ago. With me is Manuel Campo, who is a doctor who has worked with the refugees. Are the refugees coming in now in worse shape than they were before?
Well, lately they have been coming in a worse shape because the condition of the sea. But they are coming in poor shape too, by reason they have lately are beating them more frequently. They are they put the dogs against them. They are wounded by knife, bayonets, and really the conditions of the moral conditions and the physical conditions are very bad, more by the maltreatment they are receiving in Cuba than by the condition of the seas.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank both of you. By far the greatest majority of the refugees, or a great percentage of the refugees who have arrived here since the boat lift began, are young males. And later on this evening we'll talk with an Army colonel who has a plan to deal with those males. He wants to put them in an Army unit. This is Mike Betcher, Cable News Network, Key West.
In Georgia, convicted killer Jack Potts is scheduled to die Thursday in Georgia's electric chair. He's on death row in the Georgia State Prison, convicted 4 years ago of kidnapping and murdering 24-year-old mechanic. Potts has since turned to religion. He's a Roman Catholic now and says he's ready to die, ready to take his punishment. He told a reporter from TV station WSB in Atlanta he doesn't want people protesting and demonstrating against his execution.
The people that are fighting the death penalty could understand this, that I'm at peace now, and it's the first time in my life I've ever been like this. The people that are, some of the people that profess to be fighting the death penalty, they aren't really, it's inconsistent. Their thoughts, their beliefs are, they're against the death penalty, but they're for abortion. It's inconsistent. It doesn't make sense.
With us in the studio now is the mother of Jack Potts, and to interview her, here is Don Farmer of our staff. Don?
Dave, we've just been told and have just told Mrs. Potts that her son has been moved and transported safely to the Reedsville Penitentiary, where the execution will take place on Thursday if nothing changes. With me are Mrs. Carolyn Potts, the condemned man's mother, and his son, Jack Jr. Mrs. Potts, I know you believe your son is innocent. Thousands of people are planning demonstrations this week around the country against his execution. Why, with all due respect, why are you not out there fighting for his life?
Because we've been fighting for a long time, and it seems like the more we fight, the more we get fought against. Jack has, well, his case has been carried to court. As for being tried, he's never been tried. He was sick, he was out of it. When it first happened, he was full of dope and whiskey. He doesn't remember anything. He's been in constant pain ever since. For long periods of time, he was sick,
But he wants to
in
die.
pain.
He wants to be executed, is that right?
I can't say he wants to die. I can only say that he doesn't want to live under the conditions that he's living under.
Jack, what is your dad doing in these last few days of his life?
He's trying to prepare for us after he's gone, and talking to me a lot and telling me how to survive, really. And that's about it. You know, he's got a lot of stuff on his mind now.
In just a couple of seconds, Mrs. Potts, why did you invite the victim's mother to the execution?
She seems to have been bitter for so long, and I feel sorry for that woman. I realize I could be in her place. It could be the other way around. And for someone to be that bitter, and I know the woman's hurt, but we, the family, we couldn't help it any more than she could, and she doesn't believe that her son and my son were friends. I can understand that. She never knew it. And it's hard on her, but I just wish, and she keeps having this wish, and she thinks that justice is being done by taking a life. And I just don't think it's up to any individuals to take the life. I don't believe, and I know it won't bring her son back to see another person killed.
Thank you, Mrs. Carolyn Potts and Jack Jr. And the execution date is still scheduled for Thursday here in Georgia. Now back to Dave and Lois.
Okay, Don. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to have our first hour-long sports show. Then in the following hour, Renelle Demuse and Lou Waters will be in for another full hour of news.
And at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, President Carter will be interviewed in Washington by our senior correspondent, Daniel Shore, and Washington managing editor, George Watson.
Stay with us. We're going to have all kinds of news, sports, weather, and special features coming from now on and forever. For Dave Walker, I'm Lois Hart. The News Channel now continues.